I'd like to thank you all for joining me to help me celebrate my announcement of my candidacy for the presidency of 2024. That's right, I would appreciate your vote. I'd like to talk a little bit about my platform, what you can expect from my administration. Hold on just a second, I'll have that for you. Okay, first of all, I will not take your guns. That's right, I will not take your guns. I have a few guns. I like guns. Guns are part of our Second Amendment right in the Constitution. I happen to believe in the Constitution. I happen to support the Constitution as it is, not change it however I like to change it to suit the situation or the banking cartels. Another thing I like to mention that I have in mind is I don't like corporations. They don't like me, I don't like them. So, I think we need to do something about any corporate entity that has the same rights as a person. Like it has feelings. The only feeling it has is its bottom line. It's just going to make money for them stockholders. It's a federal law that they have to do that. It doesn't seem fair, does it? Doesn't seem fair at all. Okay, and at some point, I would like to see the tax reform to where these corporations or corporate entities have to pay taxes. They don't get away from paying taxes. Maybe they even pay back some of the taxes they got away with not paying. I don't know how that will work yet, but I have my best people working on that right now. I have another idea. I think that perhaps we should make things like voter fraud and foreign collusion. I think we should make those treasonous. Oh, they already are? Well, treasonous is supposed to be punished by death, I believe. At least it used to be. So I'm thinking that if there's a swamp that needs drained, that would drain it pretty quick. And another thing, these fellers that survive this swamp draining, they ought to have a term of, 4 to 6 years. I'm sure it's something else. My favorite, hang on. They're saying no more than 6 years. I kind of agree with that. They don't want to have a career where lobbyists pay them for what their opinion should be. I don't really like that, but I see it going on. I'm thinking the last I saw the penalty for treason was death by firing squad. Sounds kind of extreme, but makes a point. Alright, well that's enough for now. I would like to mention, if you could, for a personal favor for me, watch a video, Ethos, A Time for a Change. I'm sure you can see it on, Amazon Prime, YouTube, just about anywhere. It's an older movie, but it's pretty relevant to our times, and I believe it can help us get out of this mess. I don't know. I gotta talk to my guys again. They're saying there's some pretty good ideas there, and they're working on it. So we'll get back to you on that too. Thank you again for showing up, and a vote for me is a vote for thee. Thank you very much. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me again. A quick video on the Federal Reserve. A lot of you people probably already know this, but some of you may not. The Reserve is a tool for elitists to control and maintain control. In my opinion, they're trying to control us. They're trying to dominate the world's resources. So keep an open mind, but question everything. Alright, this one's kind of a sore spot for me. Politicians. They're not what they seem to be. They're not looking out for your interests. I'm going to say crooked politicians, but if you just say politicians, it usually covers that. I think they're two-faced. I think they're self-serving. I'm sure they lie about everything. They're not responsible or accountable to the people for what they do. They don't really. It's not set up like you think. And the reason I'm mentioning politicians is it's so closely related to what's going on with the Federal Reserve. Generally, when you have a two-party system, the news media and the politicians themselves set it up like there's one side that follows a certain thing and the other side follows another. So in that way, there are two parties. Well, it's more true that it's the same thing. They may differ on some things. Generally, they're not going to differ on economic issues. The difference in that is marginal at best. Most of your candidates are on the same boat as far as the budget, economic issues. They really don't change that much on that. Healthcare, pro-NAFTA, corporate-backed trade agreements. Again, they're following the bankers' agenda. If you look at it and you follow the money and you break down what they really mean, then they're either lying to you or they're backing corporate agenda. The more show they have on the media, the more money they make as far as trying to get their agenda up. So basically, it doesn't matter who you vote for, things aren't going to change that much. I mean, I've never seen a bigger difference than in our last election between the standing president and the other candidate. Some things you will see a difference on. They focus on civil rights, issues like gay rights or abortion. So they seem different. And those things can change from administration to administration. So I guess what you're voting for is the small things and social things, not so much economical or financial things. Those things are tied up. And I'm going to explain more about that now. Actually, I guess what I'm saying here is that both candidates are following the same master as far as any kind of financial agenda. And basically, on this video, I'm trying to focus on our money situation because look how it affects every other thing. You know, everything's based on money. In an example, an incoming president rewards big donors with ambassadorship or a place on a federal advisory panel to approve new drugs, vaccine, environmental regulations. All this is for sale. Is the government for sale? Is the White House for sale? I believe a lot of us already know the answer to that. Obviously it is.
It is completely unrealistic to expect democracy to deliver representatives who will serve the people's interests when so much money is involved. Having so much money in politics gives all the power to those with money. Yes, we are all still allowed to vote, but how free is our choice? The media in the hands of big business will only present us with politicians that will serve their interests. It would be completely illogical for them to do otherwise. It would also be illogical to expect politicians to change a system that puts them in power. But it certainly begs the question, just what kind of democracy do we have?
We like to think we live in a democracy. We don't. Reality is something called a polyarchy. That is the system where the real power lies in the richest people and the rest of the nation is fragmented. That's all by design and hidden behind pretense and lies. The rich and powerful have always dominated society. Most real power is still exercised by those we don't elect. These so-called people will resort to any means to retain their power.
Big business is about making money. That's what big business does well. Governments, however, have to balance the needs of the whole society, including big business, based on ethics and social and moral responsibility. But if our corporations have become more powerful than our governments, then we have to understand the effect that is going to have on our systems.
Governments have become powerless compared to where they were before.
Capitalism today commands the towering heights and has displaced politics and politicians as the new high priests.
Corporations, by law, must increase their bottom line. In order to expand, they have to sell more products. Sell more products, they must consume more resources. Even going back 50 years, we could see the effect that this was having on our environment. Today, the effects of pollution and industrialization have multiplied tenfold, and the damage is terrifying. And yet these same corporations still want to drill for oil in the Arctic. And that's not just morally blind, that's morally bankrupt. Also, corporate expansion into other countries to get those resources is the cause of so much war and conflict, as you will see in this film. We need our corporations to bring us the technologies, many of which already exist, that can help us address the issues we face. And yet, the system encourages a thirst for short-term profit. I know many of us have heard stories about powerful groups of businessmen who pull the strings of governments from behind closed doors. And so many rumors have sprung up around organizations like the Bilderbergs and the Council on Foreign Relations that it's really difficult to know what to believe. However, it is an interesting fact. The Federal Reserve Bank of the United States is not actually owned by the government. It is owned by a private banking cartel. Now, whoever these men are that can loan money to governments have to be some of the most influential men in the world, and yet we don't know who they are. Not all conspiracy theories are just theories, and the research for this film pulled up some interesting quotes.
Alright, here's my biggest pet peeve. Corporations. Corporations have one goal: profit above all else. At anyone's expense. They'll do anything for profit. And the government and the laws actually protect them in most cases. Alright, so the 14th Amendment after the Civil War grants corporations the right to be classified as a person, being designed to be concerned only for their stockholders, not anyone else. The community or commonwealth are on their own. Corporations don't care about you or our planet. They only care about the corporate bottom line. Corporations are subject to a strange characteristic. They are required by law to place the financial interest of the stockholder above everyone else, even the public good. A good example, let's say, look up Monsanto, all the issues they've had with what they've done to the environment for money. Also, something called RBGH, that should pop up in your search right off the bat. Obeying the law becomes a financial equation. It's not a moral imperative. So they balance whether they can make money on it against how much it might cost them if they get caught or screw up and actually have to pay for it. You know, the car companies do the same thing with insurance companies do the same thing. They're all corporations. They all follow the same law. It's all about money for our stockholders. They don't care about long-term damage to the earth or people's healths. It's not a concern. We see that every day. The news doesn't report on it now because guess what? The news is a corporation. All governments have become puppets to big business and finance. Almost powerless, in fact. All right, all this is really building down to this: the banks. The power to control the money supply, which affects inflation, interest rates, all manner of financial gain or loss. This control over money, it belongs to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not part of our government. Most of you probably know this. The federal government is a globally elite bankers cartel club, and they've got it to the point now where what they say goes because of the dollar. I'll tell you more in the media section about the media's role in this. It's sad that the value of our dollar rests in the hands of a group of self-serving profit mongers who are happy to cause short-term, long-term damage to anyone or anything to make a dollar. Enter the global banking elitist cartel and their agenda of controlling the earth's people and resources. This is how it works. When our government needs money, it asks the Federal Reserve for it. But the Fed doesn't just give the money to the government, it loans money to the government with interest. This keeps the government and the people in a constant state of debt, as it is designed to do. As we all know only too well, debt equals slavery. The grandfathers of this financial American slavery, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, Warburgs, the Rothschilds, and other families as well, set up a central banking system in U.S. J.P. Morgan, because of the stock crash in the 20s and 30s, to bankrupt smaller banks and make the panic. And in the panic, they would buy up these other companies for pennies on the dollar. Once this was done, they lobbied the government under the impression that the banks and the reserve would cause more financial stability. That's what they thought back in the 30s, 40s. But it hasn't turned out that way. And it was basically bait on a hook to set us into a never-ending cascade of debt and financial slavery.
We get almost all of our information from the media. If we base our opinions on bad or biased information, then everything we believe is suspect. Political debate today is kept within very narrow boundaries, so the media can present both sides of these narrow positions and give the impression we have a free press. However, to talk about left or right-wing press is to miss a very important point. Whatever message big business wants carried, with whatever slant, the media will carry that story unfailingly.
Well, the title is actually borrowed from a book by Walter Lippmann, written back around 1921, in which he described what he called the manufacture of consent as a revolution in the practice of democracy. What it amounts to is a technique of control.
Another major problem, in my opinion, the media. Oh, this is important. The term, the manufacture of consent, a reevaluation in the practice of democracy. It amounts to a technique, a kind of control, because the common interests elude the public opinion. As in, we don't know what's good for us. I've actually heard politicians say, let's see, who was it? Pelosi, Harris, I hate mentioning names, but they say that we don't know what's good for us, and they have to take care of us like we're children, like we can't make up our mind. But we don't have informed consent like they do to actually make these decisions. Then it's not really our fault, it's their fault, the media's fault. And this form of government where we have no choice, no free consent, we don't get the information, that's the exact opposite of democracy, which is what we believe we have, and it's not democracy. It's not democracy at all. It hasn't been for a long time. So begins the practice of social programming and the control of popular opinions. Nazis pioneered this with mixed results during the Second World War. Modern day techniques are much more convincing and subtle. The idea that information and emotions drive behavior is the current narrative. These people understand the current narrative of our mainstream media exists to control and could be considered social programming. If you want more information on this technique that I'm talking about of more or less subconscious brainwashing, look up a guy named Walter Lightman. He has a very good book about it, and hopefully it'll explain more about what I'm talking about here, about people subconsciously program you so you think it's something you want when it's really something that you've been influenced to believe you want or need, and therefore you will spend money on it.
How they could make people want things they did not need by linking products to their unconscious desires. And the mass media would be the key.
The media and marketing men spend billions of dollars in research. They have developed an entire science based on the very best psychology and knows exactly which one of our buttons to press to make us swallow an idea or buy a product. And they're not just selling us laundry detergent. They sell us everything from plastic gadgets to warfare. If we are to make decisions about the future of our society, the single most important thing we need is the truth. So I would like us to imagine a nightmare scenario. A powerful group of businessmen with access to the White House who control the media and who make obscene amounts of money whenever there's war.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought.
Substantially dictated by powerful corporate interests. Clearly capitalism is winning.
For anyone who doesn't yet know, our corporations have been in the Middle East trampling on their beliefs and customs since they discovered oil. Our corporations will tell us they are just getting us the things we need, and there is truth in that. But we have to decide what price we are willing to pay. We as individuals drive the demand for these resources, as long as we are all aware of the fact that there is blood in this oil, and that is the decision that we make, and so be it. It's completely understandable that people bury their heads in the sand, and if we don't look too closely, life doesn't seem too bad in many areas of the world. But that is going to change, and there are some logical outcomes to the way this system works that will affect every one of us.
I was invited to Washington, D.C. to attend this meeting that was being put together by the National Security Agency called the Critical Thinking Consortium. I remember standing there in this room and looking over on one side of the room, and we had CIA, NSA, DIA, FBI, Customs, Secret Service, and then on the other side of the room we had Coca-Cola, Mobil Oil, GTE, and Kodak. And I remember thinking, I am like in the epicenter of the intelligence industry right now. I mean, the line is not just blurring, it's just not there anymore. And to me, it spoke volumes as to how industry and government were consulting with each other and working with each other.
An initial news report in the Army Times newspaper last month noted, in addition to urgent emergency response, the force, quote, may be called upon to help with civil unrest and crowd control. Did this surprise you?
It did. It surprised me also that Northcom itself was involved in intelligence sharing with local police officers in St. Paul. I mean, what in the world is Northcom doing looking at what some of the protesters are involved in? And you had infiltration up there too. But what we have going on in this country is we have infiltration and spying that goes on not only at the, all the way from the campus police practically, Amy, up to the Pentagon and the National Security Agency. We're becoming a police state here.
The Fourth and Sixth Amendments to the Constitution, to the Bill of Rights, are dead letters.
Both of these bills were written into the Constitution by the Founding Fathers in order to protect the people of America from the government of America. Right now, the right to freedom of speech, the right to free assembly, and the right to a fair trial are no longer protected by law.
So now we see big money controlling our economy, and the elite pursuing more profit and control, making money from war and politics, all in the name of profit, with the power to influence government policy in these areas without any type of informed consent. All the while, mainstream media reporting what their elitist masters tell them by scripting reality forged by global elitist banking cartels. The politics of fear and compliance. The more afraid you are, the more you comply, and the more willing you are to give up civil liberties. Don't trust the government run by corporate agendas.
And herald a new beginning at every level of our society.
This is the 21st century. If we use our resources wisely, there's no reason why anyone shouldn't have what they need. There's no reason whatsoever why people are still starving to death on our planet. And the common man or woman, whether they are Israeli or Palestinian, Protestant or Catholic or Iraqi or American, the common man just wants to live in peace and justice in a clean environment. When we look around the world and we see that that is not the case, we know that the will of the majority is not being listened to. That's the first sign that our system is broken. Government won't make these changes for us. Yet again, it is down to the common man. Please don't just watch this movie and turn away. We can fix this system.
It's my personal opinion that we've gone beyond the point where corporations and banking cartels actually just want our money now. They're apparently taking the next step where they do away with, at least here in the United States with our Constitution, they've decided that we don't know what's good for us and that they're going to change things the way they want it to be, whatever particular case that might be. I'm talking about overall, our rights are being changed, taken, And it's up to us to decide whether we're okay with that. Now, I know maybe some people don't understand what's going on, so they support that agenda. But if they look a little deeper, they might see a cascading of events that will eventually turn into something that they're not going to want or enjoy. So, you know, we got a good thing going here in America. Let's don't screw it up. We have the power. We can take the power. All we really have to do is stand up for the Constitution. Get a lawyer. Don't let them push you around. You do have rights. Now, I've got to admit, some lawyers are also on board with, you know, an elitist agenda, if you want to call it that. So, you know, it's not just any lawyer, it's not just any politician that's going to help you. Some of them are part of the problem. All right, well, thanks a lot for listening this long. If you made it this far in my video, you should get some kind of freaking award. So I do appreciate it. Please subscribe and leave a comment. You know, I appreciate that too. Helps me out with the content. And y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time.